I picked up the camera again. I can't believe it. Today is Monday, February 3rd. It is about 2:30 in the afternoon. I'm working from home today because I am working in admission. So we typically have about 1 or 2 reading days a month where we work from home and we read applications. I've been reading all morning. It has been crazy. So I finally just kind of got to the end of my queue. So I'm excited to take a break for a few minutes. I'm going to eat lunch and I'm trying to upload this video and it is taking forever. Let me show you what I mean. So I've been doing this, zoom in on that. I've been doing this for I think I've been working on this for 6 hours. The problem was that I was exporting in the wrong preset. So I was exporting in .mov instead of .mp4. So it was making my file really high quality, but the file was so big. And so every time I went to export the movie, the file was too big and it wouldn't save on my computer. So then I had to start over and I did this 12 times. I was like, oh, it's me. It was me. So we are going to eat lunch and I think I'm going to make another coffee. And yeah, we have max effort squats tonight. Max effort squat into a band, a doubled mini for one single. Hoping to get 295 this week. 2 weeks ago, I hit 290. I missed it the first time because I was being an asshole. And then the second time I did end up hitting it. And it was very slow. Last week, I had 5 sets of 2 and they were at 235. So hoping to hit 295 for a single tonight. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, let's go make lunch. I am 3 weeks out from my next powerlifting meet. I compete in the 84 kilo weight class. I'm hovering right at 84 right now, so I want to make sure that I stay on track with my nutrition so that I don't weigh in over, and so that I can use that to fuel my foray into requalifying for USAPL 2020 Raw Nationals, which I will talk about in another video probably next week or something. And so I have been following Renaissance periodization for the last 4 weeks. I've actually seen pretty decent results, not necessarily in terms of weight loss or anything like that, but overall feeling fueled going into my workouts and really making sure that my body is ready to perform at a high level every day. So today I am going to be having steak, rice, and broccoli for lunch. I'll pop something up on the screen over here so you can kind of see what the app looks like. I use the diet app right now, and I'm excited to eat. I am hungry. It has been a long day of application reading and I am ready to eat some steak. So let's go. I think one thing that's really interesting about these Fitspos, if you will, is that today, no shade, because I know that a lot of them are in bodybuilding prep, or they're in they're in contest prep, or they just don't eat. But I watched someone today post their pre-workout meal, and it was 2 rice cakes and butter lettuce. And I just could not believe that there was a literal human being who is gonna go to the gym and call that a fucking pre-workout. Jesus Christ. Butter lettuce is not pre-workout. And if you need somebody to tell you that, it's me. Here's me telling you that butter lettuce is not pre-workout. Thank you very much. This is my TED Talk. I am waiting for my rice to cook and my broccoli is sizzling in the background. You probably can hear it. Put my hair up because I don't like to eat with my hair down. I don't know if I'm the only person in the whole world who thinks that, but I just really don't like to eat with my hair down. So I'm sitting at my dining room table, waiting for my food to cook. Figure I'd just chat really quick because I'm not going to show you me eating on camera because that's gross. Even though I do watch mukbang, but I don't know. I can't get into me doing such things. I just wanted to come on really quick to chat a little bit about like my overall nutrition, what I'm doing going into this meet. So I'm 3 weeks out, like I mentioned. I am still eating like normal. I am probably on training day, so today's a training day. I think my macros in the RP app are 165 grams of protein, 65 fat, and 185 carbs. The RP app does not count carbs from fiber, so I would say that that's probably closer to 200 to 210 depending on what foods I eat for that day, how much fiber I eat, and, you know, obviously those calculations come out. So I'm eating, you know, between 1900 and 2050 calories, which is a pretty substantial amount for me. I've never been one to be able to, you know, eat a lot of calories and not gain a ton of weight. That's just not my body type. So I'm pretty happy with that right now. Like I mentioned, it's primarily all whole foods. So steak, rice, broccoli, chicken thighs, thinking like what are my favorite foods that I use in the app. The chicken thighs, chicken breast, ground turkey, steak, ground beef, eggs, and egg whites are primarily my protein sources, and of course protein powder, as well as I've been eating a lot more of the Dannon 000 Greek yogurts. I really like those for the nutritional content. They're 15 grams carbs with 6 grams fiber and 15 grams protein and no fat. So on a training day when your fat's a little lower, especially around your training period, those are a great way to get in some extra protein. And the, what else have I been eating? Oh, and then carbs, obviously. I've been eating a lot of rice, a lot of pasta, a lot of potatoes. I've been eating more rice, I've noticed, just because it is easier to track. It's easier to make, and it's easier to split up. So I have been eating a lot more rice recently, but other than that, I really haven't been eating too much of anything that is like really abnormal. For me, I would say that my eating has relatively stayed the same, which is pretty cool. I am going into the gym tonight for a heavy squat single into bands. And then the rest of this week, I have a heavy bench press with middle fingers on the ring. So my typical competition grip is with my ring fingers on the ring. So maximum competition grip because I have really short arms and I have a good arch. So it enables me to utilize those leverages pretty well. So tonight I have a middle fingers on the ring, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when your range of motion is already this, anything that's like a little bit more, you know, seems like an eternity sometimes under the bar. So I have a pretty heavy bench single, hoping to match my competition PR on that. And then Wednesday, I have a deficit single. So I mentioned this in the last video, I have a 380 pound deficit deadlift single. And then my day 4, I have a comp squat double, pretty heavy. I think the number we're trying to hit going into this week is 147.5 for 2. I hit 145 for 2.5 on Saturday, so it was supposed to be a triple and I only hit a double. I missed the last rep, so hoping to hit 147.5, which is with the pound bar around 326 pounds for a double, which would be just under my competition best for 2. I've never been one to particularly be able to rep things that are close to my competition max, so it's a good entryway into, you know, what I might be able to hit for a single on meet day. So Saturday will be 2 weeks out, which is scary as heck. And I'm looking forward to getting back into the gym, even though it's only been 2 days. It's still, every time you have a rest day in the middle of 2 particularly heavy training days, I'm always like, ooh, I want to get back into the gym. I want to get right back into it. What's up, y'all? I look a little different. In the last clip, you saw me just about to eat my pre-training meal before I went to train for my first day of the week this week. That was on Monday, and since then, today is Saturday, February 8th. I just got home from reffing a high school powerlifting meet in Boston, and I'm sitting down here. I have my footage to the left, and I am going to do a quick look at my training this week, and you can kind of see how I'm gearing up to taper down for my meet, which is 2 weeks from today. It seems like I was just talking about how I was 3 weeks out. Now I'm already 2 weeks out. So I'm excited to kind of roll my footage and talk a little bit about, the highs and lows points of the week. I did only have 3 training days this week. That's because I decided to forego my 4th training day. And I'll get into that a little bit at the end of the video. So this first clip that you'll see is me working up to a max effort squat into doubled minis. So you can see in this video that the mini band is actually pulled around the bottom peg rather than only put on one peg or only the whole band stretching the length of the range of motion. I mentioned in the clips before that I wanted to work up to 295. That's what was written on my sheet. I'll go ahead and play the 275 clip for you over this voiceover, but you can see that the 275, while it wasn't hard, it definitely wasn't easy. And I kind of knew going into that lift that I had let myself cave a little bit in the bottom of the hole, and then I let the bands take over and I had to fight through them rather than, using the bands to my advantage in the lift. And so when I came up from that 275, Kevin said, put 285 on and we'll take it from there. The next clip you'll see will be 285, and you can tell that was definitely a max effort lift for that day. One thing to keep in mind is that we run a constraints-led conjugate program, which means that every day changes based on how you're feeling. For me, I had hit a max effort triple and a max effort double 2 days prior. So I trained Saturday morning and then I trained on Monday afternoon. And so I think just my body was still a little bit fatigued from the work that I had put in that day. I also had deadlifts after those squats. So I think just with the work that I put in on Saturday, my body wasn't totally recovered from Monday. And it could also just have been that I wasn't strong enough to hit 295 that day. So I think going into that for me, it was a little bit of a letdown just because I really did want to hit that 295. Going into now this coming week into testing singles, going into the meet next week, I really wanted to hit that 295 because I needed that positive mental progression. But hitting the 285 was definitely still a good lift for me. It was definitely still challenging. It definitely still taxed me. And the reality is it was only 10 pounds less than what I was supposed to hit, so it wasn't like it was a huge drop off. I was still able to work up to a fairly heavy single into doubled minis, which for me is definitely progress. After that, I had 4 sets of 4 back-offs at 200 pounds into those same doubled minis, really working on pushing through the hole into the bands rather than letting the bands push me around. I think I did a decent job of these. Definitely not my best squats ever, but also after a max effort lift, the back-offs usually are always more challenging for me. So I think I did a pretty good job going into my day 1. Now moving on to my day 2 programming. So I mentioned that I had a single with middle fingers on the rings. Normally I bench, in competition I bench with my pointer fingers on the rings. So middle finger is 1 finger in, so it is about like a 2 centimeter difference, which the sport of powerlifting is a sport of millimeters. So definitely shows a little bit of a constraint in my programming. And I still was able to hit a touch and go single that was a hair over my competition max. So in training we use the kilogram plates, but we also use a bar that's in pounds, and when you mix those together, typically whatever you put on in kilos is about a half kilo over, 0.4 if you want to get very specific, but it's about a pound over what you'd normally hit in competition. So this single that you'll see me working up to, the top single I hit, the loaded weight was 92.5 kilos. With the pound bar, it's about 92.9 kilos, which is just over 204 pounds. So it's just over a pound what it would normally be in competition, which is my max, 203.12. So this was really exciting for me because I even though it was touch and go, I still had one finger more narrow than I normally bench, which for me is the biggest constraint because my arch is quite large and my grip is quite wide. So any moving in of my hands is enough to kind of throw me just a little bit. So next week, this coming week, I have a competition bench single max effort. So I'm excited to see what I can hit on that. I have not taken a competition bench single since I was on the platform at nationals when I missed 92.5 for the second time. I have hit it once prior in prior competition. That's why it's my competition max. But the last 2 meets I've competed in, I have missed 92.5. So I'm excited to go get back on the platform and hopefully hit that again for obviously not a meet PR, but matching my competition best. After that, I had back offs again with a longer pause. So they were around 145 pounds. I had those for 4 sets of 4. They were pretty easy. Really for bench for me, anything like less than 20 pounds below my max is usually pretty easy just because of the overall weight that I'm lifting. It's not that much weight. So, for me, that usually is pretty easy. Anything above, I would say like 180 tends to feel a little heavier. Usually for singles, it still looks a little bit light until I get right up to my max. But then anything more than that, like even doubles, looks usually pretty challenging. So all in all, that was a pretty good training day. I was pleased with that day. And then the last training day I had, which was yesterday, I had a lot of competition bench. So I had a 6x3 at 77% of my best, which was about 160 pounds for 6 sets of 3. So that was pretty good. It was supposed to be with minimal rest, so I finished it in about 25 minutes, which for 6 sets is pretty good. Those were also with a longer pause, so just making sure that I'm keeping the bar to my chest, holding it, and then pressing it so that I'm really practicing that competition pause when I'm not practicing it on my other bench day. Then after that, I had a max effort deficit deadlift single. 2 weeks ago, I hit 376 pounds for a single at about an RPE 9. And then I attempted to hit 391. Kevin had initially told me to go for like 386 or 388, but I jumped a little too high and I got it to about my knees before it just became too heavy, especially with the deficit. So I ended up missing that lift. So this week coming in, I wanted to hit 172.5 kilos, 173 with the pound bar, so 381 pounds. And you'll see I worked up to that. I hit a 140 kilo single, then I hit a 157 kilo single, and then I hit that 172.5, 173 with the pound bar single for a definite RPE 10, definite hitching at the top just because I locked my knees too quickly, and then obviously I was out of position because I'd already pulled, like that would be where I stop when I normally pull. So when you lock your knees too early in a deficit single, it causes you to have to hitch if you're even able to get it up. Otherwise your shoulders won't lock out. So I was able to lock out the lift, so it was a good gym lift, not a good competition lift, but that's why we don't pull off a deficit in competition. So overall, I would say the week went pretty well. I obviously didn't hit all of the lifts that I wanted to, but I think for me, the biggest piece going into this next week of max effort singles, all with competition stance or grip, is really focusing on all of the things that I've been practicing in the last 16 weeks now since nationals. So the biggest things for me is that, my form will always need improvement. Your technique is never something that you want to just say, oh, my technique is perfect, I don't need to practice that anymore. I think technique is still something you want to make sure that you're practicing all throughout your lift, as well as you start to warm up for those heavier singles. But for me, I think the biggest thing that I've been practicing over the last 16 weeks is the ability to maintain composure when going into a really heavy lift. For so long, like the first 3.5 years of my competition journey, I had always felt like I was really nervous about competing and lifting heavy weights. I would get scared of the heavier weights. And I think for me, having the ability to go for that and know that I'm able to hit that, like I went into that deficit single And when I got up onto that block to go pull, I said to myself, first of all, you have hit more than this off the floor, so there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to pull this. You have the strength to pull it. And you also have been working for this for 16 weeks. You know what you need to do. You know how to set up for a lift. You know how to progress through each lift. You know what you need to do in order to get all white lights. So just go ahead and do it. Now, obviously, for that deficit single, I did end up pitching it at the top, but just having that mental composure as you're moving forward into each lift really helps you limit the fear that you have on competition day, because ultimately, like, you may, depending on if you have a coach or not, if you're handling yourself, you may start to touch some weights that you've never touched before. Especially for more intermediate and advanced lifters, they may not train up to their all-time maxes going into a meet. They may decide only to take those on competition day, which for some people works and some people does not. But, the weights that we're touching right now are near to true maxes. So really making sure that your fear is limited so that when you go onto the platform, you can hit that lift with at least 90% technique, so that you're able to say, I gave that my all, and maybe my form broke down a little, but I was still able to grind through that technique breakdown because I have limited the fear that's within me. So we are 14 days out. It's hard to believe that it has been so long since 2019 Raw Nationals. I was just joking with Kevin the other day that it has been the longest yet quickest 16 weeks since that meet. Obviously we had Thanksgiving, we had the holidays, we had New Year's, and then I signed up for this meet like 7 weeks out. So it really didn't even feel like I'd spent so long in meet prep. Usually, if you go back and watch some of my earlier videos, I was prepping for that meet in 2018. And I had said that, I was 16 weeks out, which is such a long meet prep. And for the bigger meets, like for instance, I have already signed up for my next meet. So I'll be competing at Northeast Regionals in Uncasville, Connecticut at Mohegan Sun. And so, I've already signed up for that meet, which is... I am 22 weeks out from that meet. I just looked it up. And so that meet prep will be a lot longer. So when I compete in 2 weeks, I will be 20 weeks out from regionals. We'll have a lot of work to do. We'll probably spend at least 16 of those weeks in total variation, and then get back to competition, triples, doubles, and singles in those last 4 weeks. So like end of June, early July. So I'm looking forward to, hitting some singles for 1 week, then taking it easy the next week and competing on the 22nd. If you have any suggestions or feedback, make sure to leave it in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd love for you to subscribe and join this newly forming community of like-minded strength athletes on the internet. I'm hoping to create and foster a community of women and men who want to support and elevate the strength sports, specifically powerlifting. That's all I have for today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.